What's up, guys and gals, and welcome to Veve Vibes, where I love talking all things Veve NFTs, speculation, and of course the market. So just a huge shout out to all the people that showed up to my stream last night. I just decided I feel like streaming. I got a few hours to kill, and it was a ton of fun. I had the wrong title on the stream. It just said like my broadcast or whatever. I didn't announce it or like put up a social media tweet or anything like that announcing it, but I had about 60 or 70 people show up, and it was a ton of fun. I fielded dozens of questions talking about the market, NFTs, speculation stuff, all kinds of things. And so I really enjoyed it. I think I made some good recommendations just based last night. I told people that they should probably invest in Zombie Hunter Spider-Man, Common Deadpool, a few other things, and maybe a few other adjacent NFTs that did really well just overnight. So if you guys want to come hang out, I'd appreciate it. And of course, if you subscribe to watch all my further content, that would be amazing as well. So I wanted to make this video because Andrew Ellis, one of my favorite Veve online content creators, his channel is absolutely booming. The same way Veve NFTs are just booming right now. I love his style, his setup, his talk. I've actually talked to him a few times, kind of off stream or just kind of like off platform. Really cool guy. I'd love to talk to him more. But I watched his most recent video talking about if you had 250 gems, what would you invest in? And so I wanted to take on that challenge because I'm in a helpful mood. Last night I was fielding a bunch of questions. I'm like, hey, why not do this one kind of as a response video? So all right, and again, none of this is financial advice. This is all strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only. Now, there's a huge difference between having 250 gems to your name, like you have no other NFTs and 250 gems and that's it, and you have 250 gems you're willing to invest. You already have gems either tied up in other assets, other NFTs. Maybe you do have more gems, but that's you only feel comfortable spending 250 right now and you want to save some for drops. So I will say these first couple NFTs I will be covering is just strictly, if you have 250 gems and that's it, I would save 100 gems for drops, because sometimes you might pick up something like Sue Storm, which costed 50 gems, but now you win it and you only get a common, you might have to sell it on the market for a loss. And so some people like myself don't like selling for a loss. So it's actually better to have enough gems for basically 2 consecutive drops just in case. And you can always sell those other NFTs for future drops, but that's just my personal opinion. So these first couple suggestions are in like the 150 gem range, and the next series of suggestions are going to be closer to the 250 gem range. All right, my first NFT I would suggest for you guys that only have 250 to spend, and I would suggest again you only spend about 150 of it, is right now Groots. Typically, I'm not a huge fan of chasing pumps, but right now there's still a ton of these on the market. There's close to 1,000 of the commons, and there's close to about 600, 550 of the uncommons. So if you guys only have 150 gems to spend, you might actually be able to pick up one of each of these. So Holiday Groots, right now the commons are going for 60 and the uncommons are going for about 97 to 100 gems. So you might have enough to actually pick up one of each and be able to sell these probably in a few days from now and make a nice little profit. So personally, if you guys are looking for a shorter-ish term kind of quick flip, I would suggest that you can maybe, if you're willing to spend a bit more, you can maybe even stack 3 of the commons. It's really up to you at the end of the day. All right, and the next one is Sue Storm, or just the Invisible Woman. I don't think just Sue Storm is just a common version of it, but yeah, this one pumped very quickly. I think people kind of learned their lesson when it came to zombie Captain America, as well as basically the first appearance of the X-Men Storm. She was just sitting below 50 gems for a very long time, and I think people have finally learned their lesson. They're not going to repeat that mistake again when it comes to Invisible Woman Sue Storm. So if there's anything that has the Marvel tag onto an NFT like this, I don't think they're ever going to let it fall below box price, which was 50 gems. So again, I'm not a huge fan of chasing pumps, but we're looking at the commons here. We still have 755 left on the market, as well as the uncommon, which has about 700 left over. So if you guys could, like, it's up to you guys. Again, none of this is financial advice, but you might be able to pick up a Groot, a common Groot, and like maybe an uncommon Invisible Woman, or maybe a common. Maybe if you want to squeeze out a rare, personally, I do think the rare is probably going to start stabilizing. With something like Invisible Woman, I do think it could start stabilizing at about around 120 gems. It might stabilize for a while, and again, people are going to see, oh, this is still really cheap. It's under 200 gems, 250 gems, and I might do a secondary pump, but who knows at the end of the day. But I do think people have kind of overlooked Invisible Woman and kind of looking at the future, other NFTs and other things that are pumping. But I do think this is a pretty good investment if you only have 150 gems that you're willing to invest. All right, and the next one is a bit of a 2-for-1. I'm not very bullish on the Marvel Mighties, but right now we're getting to the point, if we're talking about 150 gems, our options are pretty limited. And so again, I'm not a huge fan of chasing pumps, but definitely Sam Wilson as well as John F. Walker. Those are the 2 I would recommend. I think with all the hype happening around Captain America, the secret rare that happened not too long ago, all the Captain Americas are pumping pretty well, as well as the zombie Captain America. Actually, it was at about 75-ish gems, and now it's at about like 150 or so. So it's actually doubled in price in the last 24 hours. I do think Sam Wilson as well as John F. Walker do have a bit of room bit of wiggle room to keep going up, especially since a lot of the Eternals are pumping pretty well. They're not at like the triple, most of the Eternals aren't at like the triple digit mark yet, but I think it's only a matter of time where basically everything that's below 250, 300 gems will just get gobbled up. So at least as of right now, I do think these are pretty good buys, even though right now people obviously are just taking profits at this point. Like we had about 210 listings and now that's all the way up to 245. So people are taking profits, but I still think in the long term, if you guys are looking to hold this for quite some time, I do think these are good pickups in order for you guys to flip at some point. All right, so now we're gonna look at some NFTs in the 250 gem range. Some of these recommendations are gonna be a little bit above, a little bit below, but at the end of the day, it's gonna be up to you guys. I know some of you guys might be spending a little bit closer to 300, but the first one I would say is the DeLorean Time Machine. And the reason for this is that there's only so many cars on the Veve platform right now. And the DeLorean, the common one, is actually interactive. As far as I know, the rare is not interactive, but the ultra rare is. Both of those are a little bit out of our price range, but there's only so many vehicles on the Veve platform right now. And I understand the DeLorean has about 50,000 editions, but there has been a little bit of retracement happening recently, which I think is good for us. So just the fact that it even touched 200 shows that there is a demand and people do want this eventually, but people are just taking their profits right now. So I think, in my opinion, this is the perfect time to actually pick up a DeLorean if you guys are looking to invest probably a little bit closer or north of like 150, 250 gems, which kind of leads me to my next recommendation, which is actually the Ecto one. Again, another vehicle, but this one has way less. This actually has about a fifth of the less editions. So there's only 1,000 of the Ecto one commons. These are interactive as well. And I think this follows the same suit that the rare is static, but the ultra rare is interactive. So I just prefer to get the interactive ones because I do think those will perform very well in the Veveverse or just in the future, whatever may hold for the Veveverse. I don't see this one retracing probably in the near future. I mean, people might be taking some profits. We can see some bumps a little bit here and there, but for the most part, there's only 1,000 editions and there's 50,000 of the DeLorean. So I do think Ecto 1 might be able to have a higher ceiling, but Back to the Future, I think is a really good time to buy right now as well. All right, my next recommendation is actually one that I actually got from Beyond the Fan, who's another content creator on Veve. I've watched quite a few of his videos. He's actually been on a few live streams recently too. He's got a lot of really great insight, so I'll check out his channel and subscribe to him if you guys can. But he actually really likes the Harley Quinn from the Bombshell series. Now, I know this is pushing a little bit closer to 300 gems, and actually Harleys are pumping pretty well right now. I think the price is mostly tied to the FA Harley. I do think the Steve Pugh Harley is kind of just in a league of its own. It just does its own thing. It goes up a lot, it goes down a lot. But I do think the price of a lot of these other Harleys are tied to the FA. So when the FA goes up, people are going to be looking that can't afford it are going to be looking for adjacent versions or similar versions to that Harley Quinn. And so I do think as basically the FA goes up, it's going to you know, as tide rises, it's going to raise up all the other Harley Quinns as well. So I would say, you know, the number 12 is around 300. The number 11 is about 241. And same thing with the one that the Bombshell one is also around 300 as well. It's definitely one of the most unique looking Harley Quinn, so I do like the look of this one. Me personally, I like the FA as well as like the number 12 probably the most, but that's just my personal opinion. But I do think the Harley Quinns in general are a pretty good investment if you have around 250, maybe 300 gems. All right, we just have a few more. I would say, again, not very bullish on Marvel My Days, but when we're talking things that are below 250, 200 gems, like we don't have a ton of options. And so I'm looking at Steve Rogers, again, just kind of building off the hype of the Captain America. Just the fact that Steve Rogers actually had a peak of about 240, 250 gems just shows that there is a demand for it. And there are lots of people that are willing to pay between 200 to 250 gems in order to get to that point. Right now, there's a pretty big sell-off happening. I think at its lowest point, it was at 176 listings, and now it's up to 266. So there's about 90 more listings than there was just the other day. But I think this is actually the perfect time to buy because there are people just trying to take profits. A lot of people are undercutting each other. Right now, Steve Rogers is 190, which is probably like in the middle of the pack when it comes to the Marvel Mighty prices overall. But I do think Steve Rogers is a pretty good pickup, especially if you can't afford some of the other Captain Americas or whatever it is. I do think Steve Rogers is actually a pretty good pickup for under 250 gems. All right, and the next one that we have is Deadpool. Again, not a huge fan of chasing pumps, and funny enough, I was actually going to recommend to buy the Deadpool rare, but since as of the making of this video in the last like 30 minutes, it's already gone from 240 to 288 gems. So it's kind of crazy how fast things move on Veve. But again, I would still suggest actually the uncommon, because even if the common as well as the rare just keep running, let's say they get all the way up to 350 or even 400, the ugly sweater, I should say, the uncommon version, is still gonna, it tends to lag behind, which is why I typically, when I do see like a common pumping, I look at the uncommon, because that uncommon tends to lag behind, but it still tries to catch up to roughly whatever equal value or like a fair value that is compared to the common. So if Deadpool runs to 400, let's say, there's a good chance that the uncommon could run all the way up to like, 240, 230 or whatever it is. So there's a 40, 50 gem profit there for something that is much for like a much lower value if you just can't afford the Deadpool Deck the Halls or the Candy Cane Combat outright. So I do think the uncommon, if you guys can't afford some of the other ones as well, I do think it's a pretty good investment for the short term. All right, and last but not least, I would say honestly, any of the Adventure Time NFTs that are in that ballpark of 250 to 300 gems. This is just me personally. I still think these are very, very undervalued. They're the second set that's ever been released on Veve. Adventure Time is one of the highest grossing Cartoon Network shows they've ever had. It has one of the widest range of age groups that have watched it. I think they said at any given point they would usually have like 3 million viewers watching their shows and stuff. So I do think there's a lot of popularity behind it. I do think the entire app, or just Veve as well, is just so focused on DC, Marvel, and Disney right now. There's so much focus about it, and they're not kind of paying a lot of attention to something like Adventure Time. So in my personal opinion, I think of popularity wise, like I do think Finn Mertens and Jake the Dog, it would not surprise me if these NFTs hit like 550 at some point in the near future. It wouldn't surprise me at all, especially with how low the mints are. I mean, we're talking about 7,500 mints, 5,500 mints. Lumpy Space Princess, there's only 56 left on the market. It's sub 300. There's only 3,000 editions of that. Same thing with BMO. I would say I would probably do Finn, then Jake the Dog, then BMO, then Lumpy Space Princess. If I had to buy those like in that order of relevance, that's just me personally. But yeah, like a lot of these mints are pretty low, and we do have a lot of NFTs that have way more minted NFTs that are also part of season 1 that aren't doing as well. So it's kind of hard to compare Adventure Time to the other bigger IPs, but I do think a lot of these NFTs are incredibly undervalued, and I think it is a pretty good pickup if you guys are looking for like a medium, short to like medium term, because I do think Adventure Time could explode at any moment now. All right, and that's pretty much it, guys. If you guys were curious, the ecomi.wiki.com is the site I'm using. It used to be free. I mean, it still is free. A lot of the features are, but if you do want to look at the charts like I was and being able to look at the history of stuff, that is a premium feature. I paid for it. I think it's well worth it. And I know a lot of you guys might not be able to afford it or care to pay for it. So you guys can always watch my stuff, watch Andrew Ellis, watch Beyond the Fan, any other content creators that do spend quite a bit of time on these markets and showing you how to flip them very well. That's probably the best way to go about it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys felt like I overlooked any NFTs that are in that 150 to 300 gem mark that I think that are insanely pumping right now, it's hard because like everything is pumping right now. Like even during the making of this video, some of the stuff might be a little bit out of range, but I do hope these things helped you at the end of the day. So again, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys take care, and I'll catch you on the flip side.